I am Brad Keelor. She is Marsha Anderson Bomar. Coming up next on Director's Cut, find out what she is expecting to happen during her exciting year as ASCE President.
Can keep my hands on myself. Pico dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. Every single week, I sit down with a different GI member who has stories to tell. Some of them are personal, some are professional, all of them, always, 100% of the time, are fun. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this inspiring interview today, head over to geoinstitute.org, and there you will find out all kinds of valuable information about us, including that we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers.
Yeah.
And if you like what you see today, I feel like they're going to.
I hope so.
You should click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. As you have noticed by now, viewers, if you are eagle-eyed, and I guess if you're not listening to the podcast edition, you'll see that we are coming to you live from ASCE Convention 2025 in Seattle, Washington. The final ASCE Convention in this incarnation. So I thought, what better way to do this than to have Director's Cut and interview with our brand new ASCE President, Transportation Strategic Advisor at GHD. I got it in the right order, right?
You got all the letters right.
Boom. And the brand new, as of like 2:30 yesterday, ASCE President, Marsha Anderson Bomar. Marsha, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
It is so great to be with you, Brad. I'm really excited to do this.
We're going to have a lot of fun today. We have 10 questions, the same way we always do. 2 of them are the same that we ask everybody. And we start with one of those. Describe your job in 45 seconds.
45 seconds. 2 jobs. First job, Transportation Strategic Advisor for GHD. I open doors, I introduce people, I help strategize on project pursuits, what we should do, who we should hire, things like that. My other job, and my real passion place, my job is ASCE. I love this organization, and when I decided to run for president, I said I'm going to give it my all. So that's why I'm working a little bit for pay and a whole lot for ASCE.
So follow-up question there. I mean, how long did it take you? What we've heard, even within the institutes, we hear from some of our presidents that they plan for their presidency for like 4 years before they get there. How long have you been thinking about this and prepping for the workload that you're going to have?
So when I served on the board previously, it kind of was in the back of my mind that it was something I wanted to do one day. I had the great good fortune that incoming President Maria Lehman asked me to be treasurer, which really allowed me to do a deep dive and really understand the inner workings of all of ASCE, even the parts where I had not previously engaged. And it was really when I started that I realized the knowledge I was going to gain was really going to prepare me for this kind of opportunity. So I spent a lot of time on that, and it really solidified my desire to serve the organization at this level.
And you don't have to tell everybody out there in the audience what your email is, like the full thing, because I don't know that you want to get tons of email from people. But I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, the first time I sent a message to your email. You can tell everybody at least what the prefix is, just so they know your level of devotion to the cause.
My email address is Marsha, the number 4, ASCE. But what I do tell people is if you want to communicate with me, the best place is on LinkedIn. Because I get so many emails, it might just slip off the page and I might not see it. But I always see my messages in LinkedIn.
I know we're doing like a gazillion follow-ups on the first question here, but I think that's an important point, is really any ASCE member should feel comfortable reaching out to you with anything, I would think.
And a lot of them do, and it's wonderful. It's the best part for me that connection, it's the reason I live. It's the reason I get up every day.
Nice. So, we're going to talk about some of this later on in the interview. Now we've got to get to some of the meat and potatoes here.
Let's do
what
it.
we call the fun questions on Director's Cut. We start with this. What was your most unusual public transportation experience?
So I had the great good fortune to work for MARTA, the transit agency in Atlanta, and we have a station at the crossroads of the north, south, east, west line. So it's a 45-ish year old station that's in brutalist architecture, which means big, heavy concrete structure. Very uninviting, very unfriendly, not a welcoming place. So my most unusual project was I'm certified, an Envision certified professional and a trainer. So I have every year I work a capstone project with at least one class at Georgia Tech, where I'm based. And so one year I created a challenge. I had one class come up with an idea for a new design for the station and then evaluate it using Envision. The other group, I had use Envision to drive their design because I wanted to see how different the designs would be. It was a very unusual approach. It was very fun, and they came up with some great ideas. And we presented those ideas to the architect and the contractor who were ultimately hired to figure out the ultimate solution, and now it's under construction.
So I have to ask you here too, civil engineers are typically pretty vociferous defenders of public transportation. This is one of the things that it seems like people complain about no matter what. My son had to take the metro from Maryland into Virginia last night, which you would have thought he had to traverse the Silk Road in the 7th century. He made it. What do you say when you hear complaints about public transportation? Like, what's your go-to to people?
So my go-to is, how often have you actually ever used public transit? Because I find most of the people who complain are people who don't use transit. They have an impression of it, and so they don't use it, and then they speak that perspective without any information. So I always offer to take them for a try. Let me go on a ride with you. Let me show you how to buy a ticket. Let me show you how to change trains. Let me show you where it goes. Happy to do it.
I will say one of my favorite public transportation moments at Geo-Congress 2019, we took a bunch of people to the Flyers game on the last night.
Oh, fun.
And one of our local members and I bought 50 people tickets for the subway. And everyone was like, how are you doing this so fast? And I was like, it's actually really simple.
Yeah.
So I think the frequency does play something into it. But it's also an openness to, a lot of people view it, I think, as like a lesser option almost.
And it's not, you know, I mean, so many of us want to do social media or read a book or do something, and you can't do that or you shouldn't do that shouldn't do that.
Good save.
when you're behind the wheel of a car. So, like, why not use public transit? Let somebody else worry about it. I mean, I commuted to college. I did a lot of my studying on the train. You know, it's not a bad deal.
So you have been an Atlantan for quite a while.
I have.
And the third question is always the practice question where we talk about a cool project. We're coming up on 30 years since the Atlanta Olympics and Paralympics in 1996, and you had the good fortune of being involved in this.
Indeed.
So can you talk a little bit about that project and what your role was? And maybe, I guess, 30 years is a good time to look back, what the legacy of that work is.
So we actually got the chance to work on many components of it. Probably the two most visible and impactful for the regular Olympics, the primary Olympics, I personally was part of the team that imagined and created Centennial Olympic Park. So prior to that, there was a standard, grid network. The streets were filled with rusty old industrial buildings. There was not a lot of good stuff happening in that part of downtown Atlanta. So we had to figure out where traffic and where transit would go if we shut all those streets down and created that cohesive park. the design for the elements in the park. I was the only civil engineer. We had a charrette, and we had two teams competing with each other for ideas. I was the only civil engineer, so I got to bounce between the groups and consider what they were wanting to do, give them some perspective from the engineering point of view. The property is really sloped, so there were a lot of water issues they were going to have to deal with. So that was fabulous. We also did a massive park and ride project, and in fact, I have several of the park and ride signs that used to hang on this, by the park and ride lots. They were gifted to me by the DOT.
Oh, you didn't just detach them and walk off.
So truth be told, I could have just stolen one, but I called my DOT friend and I said, "Can I have this sign?" He said, "Sure, you have permission." I literally went to the signpost to take the sign down, and somebody had already stolen it. So he brought me a brand new one that didn't even have the holes punched in it to make up for the fact that somebody beat me to the punch, right? So working on that was great, but I'll tell you the most impactful thing. The Paralympics came 2 weeks after the other Olympics, and right across the street from where my office was located at the time, we had a great stadium type venue, and the Paralympic table tennis venue was out there. So everybody in my company got together. We volunteered to be the transportation team for the Paralympians. So we went to do an on-site view, look at the place, and we noticed that where they had the buses coming in, bringing the athletes from Atlanta out to the suburbs, there were no ramps. So I was so proud. My team went and got lumber. I'm not sure we would have passed the highest standards, but they built a very safe ramp so the athletes could actually get off the buses, which I was so proud of them. But watching those athletes play was amazing. I mean, I cannot move the way they can move, as they were so agile. They actually had a wheelchair hospital because they were so aggressive in how they moved that wheels would fly off and brakes would fly off, and they'd have to go get their wheelchairs fixed before they could come back and play again. But it was amazing, and I had young children at the time, and I brought them with me, and I think their lives were forever changed by seeing people who visually you might think they have limitations do the amazing things that they did. That they didn't act like they had boundaries, and I think that was important for the kids to see.
And I think if people have never watched the Paralympics, you should give it a shot.
Absolutely.
NBC does a lot of coverage now. My favorite Paralympic sport is sledge hockey. I love hockey, but sledge hockey is just so cool, and there are a lot of different skills that people have in sledge hockey that you don't see in traditional ice hockey. It's amazing. So I'm glad you brought that up and talked about it.
It's incredible.
Now, but looking back 30 years later, do you feel like the community feels like that was a great thing to do, to host the Olympics?
I think generally, and I think a couple of things changed when the Olympics came. So when I first moved to Atlanta 40 years ago, it was still a pretty black and white kind of place. And with the knowledge that the Olympics were coming, and then ultimately, post-Olympics, so many people from so many places moved to Atlanta. So whether it was people from other parts of the U.S. or people from other parts of the world, my children's school went from being just pretty, Southern American, solid. By the time my youngest was in school, we had about 100 plus languages spoken as first languages in our school system. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's a huge transformation. And I think it was for the better. I mean, we are so connected as a world. To not be exposed and not work side by side with people from other places, you're lost. And so I think we benefited so much from those changes. The other big change was in the arts. The arts had been kind of there, but not at a very high level. Many years before, there had been a plane crash that killed a lot of the people who were in the arts and involved in the arts community. And it was slowly coming back. There was an entire cultural Olympiad for the month before the Olympics that brought dance and drama productions and music and all kinds of things under the umbrella of spoken word, many, many different types of the arts. And it really lit a fire in the community. And now we have amazing art programs and museums and all kinds of venues for the arts in Atlanta.
That's really cool. Thank you for walking us through that, because I think outsiders don't see that stuff. We just see the monstrosity that is the Olympics and hope that it doesn't come to our city someday.
Sure.
But
Well, the other thing is, and if you happen to fly on Delta, there's actually a movie now on the entertainment system that talks about the why of the Olympics. And it was actually led by Billy Payne, who was a quarterback for the University of Georgia, very southern white boy, and Andrew Young, who was by training a preacher, but was now the mayor of Atlanta. And their reason for bringing the Olympics to Atlanta was to show that the black and white community could work together for the good of the whole. And the movie's amazing, but the realization of that on the ground in Atlanta has been completely transformational.
So now we have to go back before you moved to Atlanta. You are a native New Yorker. You were born and raised in Brooklyn. I think I'm not that old. New York's a lot different now than it was when I was a kid or even a teenager or a college student. For you, Marsha, what is, relative to your childhood, what's the most shocking change that you see in New York today?
So not unlike Atlanta, when I lived in Brooklyn, the neighborhood was relatively homogeneous. I was born and raised Jewish, and we had a very strong Jewish community. The other half of the community was Catholic Italian. And, we got along great, but that's all we were, pretty much. And I go back now, and it's the world, and it's wonderful. It's changed some of the places, that I remember from my childhood. There's a lot of the bones are still there, but in some ways it's so much more colorful because it's not just the families, the style that when I was there. It's a much bigger stage right now.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer. This is good. When I write the questions for this show, it's never hard. It's always a pretty quick thing. I think about it and it takes me kind of 5 minutes or whatever. I have to say yours was especially easy because you've done so much different stuff that once I got into it, I was like, this is kind of writing itself. You have been a founder in the past, and two, I don't know if you call them twin companies or sister companies or brother companies or whatever, called Street Smarts and Data Smarts. Can you walk us through that experience? And I'll have follow-up questions, but I guess first focus on maybe the start of the company.
Sure.
What made you want to do it?
So I was a partner in a regional engineering company. When I arrived in Atlanta, about 5 years in, I went to work for that company and quickly became a partner. Had great opportunity. I think I brought a lot of value to the company. About a few years later, I had my second child. Everything went smoothly, life went on. Now I got pregnant with my third child, and when I went to speak to my boss, he basically said I was welcome to come back after my maternity leave, but a woman with 3 children couldn't be serious about her career, so I probably won't get any further up in the company. I was devastated. He had been my mentor. It was awful. And so I knew I couldn't do that, and I had to think about what I wanted to do. And I have no idea why I had the courage. But I thought, companies now don't have rules that are people-friendly. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a parent or you're a caregiver to your parents or you coach a team, the rules of engagement really, at least at that time, this was in 1990, they didn't really give you the elbow room to have that other part of your life. And I said, I think I can do a company where we do great technical work and we're highly regarded, but that people can have lives outside of work. And me in particular, I wanted that for myself. By the way, I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in harmony, but not balance. It's never balanced. So anyway, so while I was home on maternity leave, my daughter was 6 weeks old. And I thought, I'm just going to kind of throw the net out and let people know I'm available and see what happens. So I notified people who had been my personal clients. And between the 1st of June and the end of December, I had done more work, more interesting work, and made more money than I had ever made in consulting working for somebody else. So I said, maybe we're onto something. And so within a year or so, I started hiring some more employees and winning more work. And we won a unique contract, a small business innovative research contract. What's unique about those is when you're successful with them, it's to basically create inventions. Mm-hmm. Whatever you create, you own. The federal government doesn't take it from you, at least back then. So, la la la. Anyways, sorry, trying to be apolitical here. Data Smarts was the outgrowth of a very successful SBIR contract where, and I know it's going to sound funny now because we all have devices in our hands now, the most sophisticated device that existed at the time was a Radio Shack, something just above a calculator called a TRS-80, and we called it the Trash 80. And we used it to do surveys, ask people questions and catalog their answers out on the street. Nobody had ever done anything like that before. We used to do paper and pencil interviews. So we totally transformed the data collection process. And from that, I started the company Data Smarts and developed all kinds of useful tools and kind of launched a second business.
Oh, that is fantastic. Now, there aren't a lot of startups in civil engineering, right? I mean, I feel like it's starting to get a little more prevalent. Did you feel like you got the support? SBIR aside, do you feel like you got the support you needed as a startup company? Or was, the ecosystem's a lot different now than it was 35 years ago?
So I lucked into an opportunity. As I mentioned, I had just had a child. So I had to go run an errand, took my child with me, and I stopped by a friend's office because I was right nearby, and I stopped to show her my baby. Well, her boss loved children. He came out because I knew him, but he wanted to meet my child. We ended up sitting and talking for a while, and I told him my vision of this company that I had just started. And he said, well, we overbuilt our office because we plan to stay here for a while. We have empty space. Would you like to just come and be here? So I moved in shortly thereafter, and I kept growing. Fortunately for them, they kept growing. So we got to a point where there wasn't enough room for both of us, and I graduated to my own office space. But it was such a gift to have somebody support me like that.
You need those chance meetings, I think.
Absolutely.
So usually we just do a little pitch about how to get involved with ASCE, but this is where we get the bonus pitch to the viewers this week.
Absolutely.
Small businesses out there, SBIR, every federal agency that does research is required to set aside a portion of that research money to go to small businesses. You can go to sbir.gov to get more information, and I push everybody that I can towards that because, this is a success story right here, and there are a million others out there too. As long as there's research happening at the federal level, there is SBIR money, and a lot of states match it when you get an SBIR grant.
That's true.
So there are a lot of good reasons to do it.
And I even won a second one, and it resulted in my doctoral dissertation.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about SBIR on Director's Cut yet, so this was good. I like that. 237 episodes in, and we got there. The other question that we ask everybody when they come on the show is to think back and tell your ASCE origin story. How did you first get involved with ASCE?
So my path was a little bit different. When I went to college, girls didn't do engineering. So I went to an engineering college, but my first degree is in math. And then I grew up enough, had enough confidence to go back and do the civil engineering thing. So I was doing my master's in transportation planning and engineering, and the research grant that I was offered was under the umbrella of urban goods movement, urban freight movement. And so it happened, this was long before the institutes existed, this was back in the 1970s. ASCE had an urban goods movement committee.
Wow.
Who would have thunk, right? So I raised my hand, I joined the committee, and I stayed on the committee for a number of years. And my journey continued in freight for a while. And then what I found was, for me personally, I had not connected well with the geographic units. So I didn't really feel that part of the connection. And then my work pivoted away from the goods movement piece. I was much more involved in traffic and transportation things. And what I found was that the core local meetings, maybe once a year they had a speaker about transportation. And some of the other topics were a little bit interesting, but certainly not in my wheelhouse. So I drifted a little bit away from ASCE, and I was involved in some other transportation organizations, but I always felt a pull. And then one day my phone rang. One of the people who was just installed as a distinguished member, Eva Lerner Lamb, who's one of the most fabulous people on the planet, was a classmate of mine at Princeton. And she called me up and she said, ASCE has these things now called institutes, and we have a Transportation Development Institute, and I think you need to get involved. I said, give me 24 hours. I need to kind of do a little research, think about, do I have the time? But I knew if she thought it was important, I needed to be there. So the next day I said yes, and I started out as a committee chair, quickly became a council chair, was asked to, I was an appointee to the board, then I ran for the board, and ultimately became president of the board. And that launched me into the world of the Technical Region Board of Governors. I had the great good fortune to be elected as one of the governors of that, which bought me a seat at the big table. I sat on the big ASCE board. And I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. I had the opportunity after that to stay on as the treasurer under Maria Lehman. Did that for a couple of years, and learning about everything that we do as an organization and the places where we're doing well, places where we could use some help and some improvement. I really felt called to step up and serve the organization. Plus, like for me, the big thing, I have a real passion for students and young members. And I felt like I was just drawn to give more to that group. So that was my trajectory.
That's a pretty good story. And so I think our pitch to the viewers this week is maybe more of a general one. Sometimes we do it specifically. We talk about technical committees or something like that. If you're looking for a way to get involved with ASCE, I guess don't hesitate. Those opportunities are out there. It can
so many.
It can be as small. A lot of our sections, branches, and institute chapters have micro-volunteering opportunities now where you can help out with a specific event. You can still join a technical committee, get involved with your local group.
Right.
The list goes on and on. Even volunteering to review conference papers. That's something we always need help with.
Sure.
We will never tell you that we don't have an opportunity for you. Reach out to Marsha, reach out to anybody on ASCE staff, and we are happy to help you find a place within ASCE. We've got 4 questions left, and as I said, these kind of wrote themselves. We talked about street smarts and data smarts already. You got into the restaurant business. So every time I eat out and I think about it, I think to myself, there's absolutely no way I could ever do this. You did it 3 times, I think you said. What was the most unexpected thing for you of getting into the restaurant business?
The most unexpected thing was the second restaurant was, I'll call it casual fine dining. The first one was a little bit more relaxed. And I found for that restaurant I needed somebody who really could be called a chef as opposed to just cooks. Chefs can be a handful, to say the least. Many of them are very temperamental. And I had my second chef, we won't go into the depths of the bad stuff that the first chef did, but my second chef, who was a very bright, charming young lady who was just so talented, but I did not know she was independently wealthy. So she had a little spat with somebody else who was working in the business, and I came in just to see her back going out the door. She was insulted by something he said, and this was just before dinner time, and she went up to the kitchen and packed her knives. You know, all good chefs have their own knives. Packed her knives and left, never to be seen again.
Wow.
Yeah. So the stress of trying to run a restaurant when people do things like that, it's not anything I ever imagined.
And I guess staffing in general at restaurants, it's got to be a lot more volatile, certainly, than at an engineering firm where most people are going to give you 2 weeks or a month or whatever notice.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's also one of those things that even if you know it going in, the first time you experience it, it has to be really shocking.
It is, and you know, somebody who works at your restaurant may go down the street to have lunch someplace else just for a change of pace, and they offer your employee 25 cents an hour more, and they just up and leave. And you can offer more money, but there's a point where you can't offer more money for a particular job, just like all other jobs.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes there's a limit, and it's just, I was raised to be loyal. And so to experience an environment where some people are loyal, other people, and it's not necessarily just about money. They just feel like a change, and they'll just up and leave one day and never think about the impact of just suddenly being gone. So it's a very different kind of business than an engineering company.
And you know, as much as I'm risk tolerant, I don't think I'm that kind of risk tolerant. So maybe my instincts are apparently right. I don't think I could do that. And that story is just another nail in that coffin there. Yeah. Director's Cut at its heart is a show about food, sports, and music. We talked a little bit about food, I guess, but more about restaurants. We got to talk a little bit about music. And here's your broad general question, and then maybe we'll follow it up with something. What 3 words best describe your taste in music?
Eclectic, diverse, and surprising.
Oh, I like that. That's very good. Why would we be surprised? What would be the most shocking thing that you listen to?
I have 2 answers for that. So one is a lot of K-pop. Okay, I know, go figure. But also a lot of classical. I love stringed instruments and classical music. But probably most surprising, you know, at the end of the year when you get your Spotify list of the year, you know, music, I think the Garbage Truck song is number 1. I have 3 grandchildren. So probably the top 10 are all, you know, Raffi and Sesame Street and things like that.
When you start listening to a lot of kids' music, I mean, you notice stuff about it, right? There's a reason why little kids sing the same songs over and over and want to hear them again and again and again. Like, they stick in our heads, too. I think, do you have any songs from your childhood that your kids or your grandkids also listen to that you were surprised? I mean, I'll hear something, or I did, my kids are too old for this now, and the words are just instantly back, even though I hadn't heard it in 30 years in some cases.
So I think the theme song in my family is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I started singing it to my kids when I was pregnant with them. I used to have a good voice, not so much anymore, but they still tolerate it. I sing it to my grandkids.
Tolerance is important.
Tolerance at this stage is important. But yeah, that's kind of the go-to song. I'm a big Judy Garland lover, and we've all watched The Wizard of Oz more times than we can count. And so, there are bits of the story of The Wizard of Oz that really resonate with me. So I'm connected to that piece, but that song has always just played in my head over and over again.
So I guess what we've learned here is if anybody needs a playlist for the 5 and under set, in addition
Call
to
on
reaching
me.
out about ASCE opportunities,
There you go.
Marsha can help you out. We have 2 final questions that are both about ASCE. I don't think they're not quite propaganda, because that last one is a big, wide question that you had to do some thinking about. We mentioned at the top that this is the final ASCE convention in this format. In 2 years, in 2027, well, now it's more like 18 months, all the institutes, all the other parts of ASCE are going to come together for one big conference in Philadelphia beginning of March. Call for abstracts. You're watching this, it's open.
It's open, ready to go.
This is going to go up on the 15th. You should submit. It's going to be a big deal. Putting a lot of heart, a lot of energy, and a lot of financial resources, everybody, into this as well. Marsha, what should people find most interesting? I picked that word intentionally,
Sure.
about ASCE 2027.
Can I give 2 things?
You could give 11 if you really wanted. I mean, it's director's cut.
There
we
we
can
go.
do whatever we want.
Let's do it. So, to me, those things are cross-cutting sessions that are about really cool and important topics. When we do a deep dive in an institute, we're pretty siloed. And I'm so excited because there are so many things we deal with, like sustainability and resilience, but even ordinary projects are really across disciplines. I can't design a road without good geotechnical information, without structural engineers. There are so many places where we intersect, but we don't always think together, brainstorm together, work together that way. So I'm thrilled that we're having a cross-cutting layer of the conference, as well as the deep dive. When we have an event of this scale, we have the opportunity to attract some amazing keynote speakers. And I just can't wait. I already have a list in my head of candidates that I think would be just incredible. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think that's part of the experience, that we have really good speakers at kind of the standard convention, but I think this is going to be just in another universe. But I'm also excited because the convention center is right across the street from Reading Market.
That's very
The
true.
best cheesesteak sandwiches ever. So like local experiences, we're going to be a short distance from the birthplace of America. You can go see the Liberty Bell. If you're tall, be careful when you go into Betsy Ross's house, because you get people were really short back then. You got to duck. But Philadelphia is an interesting place, and I think weaving some of what Philadelphia has to offer. It's ASCE's 175th anniversary year, right after the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. What better place to be than in Philadelphia? And celebrating, it is known for being a birthplace. So the history is so rich. So there are so many great things about it. And I guess I'll challenge everybody. I'm not going to ask you to time yourself running up the rocky stairs. You're going to do that anyway. But I want you to count and send me a message after the 2027 event. How many sculptures and paintings of Benjamin Franklin do you see as you travel around Philadelphia?
Probably a lot.
A lot.
Because you get the serious ones, you get the less reverent ones.
Yes.
It's a great place.
It's a fun
for that.
place. It's
and
a fun
Reading
place.
Terminal, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Dominic's, the roast pork with the broccoli rabe.
Nice.
There's an outpost of Sankey in there, the finest Chinese restaurant in America. Get the shrimp dumpling noodle soup. You can't go wrong. So much to love about ASCE 2027 as well. I mean, it's not just about eating while you're there.
Well, a little bit. But, the last time I attended a conference in Philadelphia was the Geo-Institute.
Oh, Geo-Congress in
Yeah,
2019.
Geo-Congress, yep. It was great.
So the natural way to wrap up here, you are the brand new ASCE President.
Woohoo!
You're going to add that to your credential here eventually, right? It's a year. We talked about gearing up for it. You'll be around as past president for another year after you're done. But as you're looking forward at the next 365 days, what do you hope ASCE members are going to remember about your presidency after it's over, or what are they going to say about it?
I listened. I was accessible. I was available. That's really important to me. I hope there are some that I will inspire, particularly those who might be on the edge of whether civil engineering is really for them or not, that I inspire them that they can find a place in civil engineering. And for me, I think the biggest thing is I really need to crack the code on helping young members understand that they need to be lifelong members, that they have a home here, that they should stay members, and your activity level can go up and down as your life allows. But when you think about any member can have access to the president, to any of the presidential officers in a heartbeat. You can network with people who have huge networks of contacts. You're doing research. You need to find people you can talk to. Reach out to your ASCE network. You want to run for office, whether it's an ASCE office. In my case, I served as an elected official for 16 years. I needed guidance. I could reach out to other ASCE members because we have a number of us who have served in elective office. The richness of the backgrounds, the skills, the knowledge, the accomplishments of all ASCE members at every level. There's so much there, and everybody wants to help everybody else. So why would you not want to be a lifelong member? So somehow I'm going to crack that code, because right now we have amazing student members, amazing young members, but we have a lot of people who drift away, and some of them come back, but not enough of them come back. I know people get busy with their lives. Maybe you're embarking on further education, or maybe you are starting a family, or maybe you've moved to a new place. There are actually all good reasons to stay a member of ASCE, because wherever you go, you'll have family. You'll have a support network. I travel around the country and around the world, and I always have my ASCE directory ready to go, because maybe I'm not traveling to an ASCE meeting. Maybe I'm not going to be meeting up with somebody I already know. I don't hesitate to reach out to somebody else and say, I'm going to be there. Can we meet for coffee? You make new friends wherever you go, because you have that common bond already. You have that passion around civil engineering. So that's my deal.
Fantastic way to wrap it up, and a lot of information in that ASCE directory. Probably, I don't know how many TRS-80s it would take to contain all of that with their 4 kilobytes of memory or whatever they have. So Marsha, you survived. You made it through all 10 questions. You made it through the follow-ups. As I always say, everybody does, but it's still an accomplishment.
Well, thank you.
For our viewers, if you liked what you saw, and you probably did because you're here at the end, you should click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we'll let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. Marsha, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Brad.
I hope it was fun.
It was so much fun.
Perfect. So again, for the viewers, we will see you in just 7 days with another brand new episode of Director's Cut. A lot of nostalgia on Director's Cut. We're going to make you think back again. Sometimes when I write these questions, it's never difficult. We'll just restart that one.
Okay. You guys, we're filming.
Sometimes I put like little bloopers or whatever.
Oh, I
at the
think
end.
that's, yeah.
That's gonna make the cut. All right. That's the first time that's ever happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna put that at the end. That's